This is what I see in Cassia's room. Oh, that's
Oh,
great.
let me
Thanks
see.
so much. Oh, yeah.
Wait,
You
it's
can't
all
see
black.
nothing.
Oh, it's all
Yeah,
black.
exactly.
Oh,
Mhm. Yeah. And then there's Lily's nightmare of a room. Oh, there she
look,
is.
there she is. Look at that cutie. What is she doing?
I don't know. God only knows. I said, don't touch this camera. Welcome to Book Talk Etc., a podcast bound to grow your TBR. I'm Tina from TBR Etc.
And I'm Hannah from Handpicked Books.
And this is a conversational podcast about books and more from two Midwest mood readers who are easily distracted by new releases. And today, we are sharing our August Books on the Radar.
If you enjoy listening, we'd love for you to follow us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And if you have a quick minute, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or sharing us on social media. It truly helps us connect with other book lovers.
Hey, Hannah.
Hey, Tina. How are you?
I'm medium. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm glad now. It's been a journey to get here. It's nighttime when we're recording. Typically, we record the main show, sort of during the mornings or what have you. But I have trainings the rest of this week. So I said, we got to find it. So thanks for getting with me in the evening. It's pretty late by you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Typically, I feel like I don't find a lot of other people who are fellow morning people, but Tina is my fellow morning gal. And
yes.
I love it because
we
typically do record early, like 8:00 your time, 9:00 my time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I could go earlier, if the kids weren't here, I'd be like up and at 'em. Let's go breakfast and
7 a.m. Let's do it.
Right. For real.
Yeah.
Yes. But this is okay.
Yes. I don't always wake up early, like especially if I don't have to, but mornings, whenever I am up and awake, are my favorite time.
That's when you're ready.
That's when I'm ready.
Me too.
But we'll get this. We got it.
We will get this. If we sound different, it's because we are. It's because we've already recorded once today, a bonus episode for our patrons and, worked a full day and did the things. But anyway, I'm excited to chat about books. I love our Books on the Radar episode. It's so fun to pick titles for this. And I have some that I'm very excited about. And I swear, August 6th, I was thinking the new releases were tapering down, but August 6th is a beast of a day.
Yeah, and there are a bunch coming out. Our September Books on the Radar episode will be robust as well. There are so many books coming out the next couple of months. It was really hard for me to narrow down books for this episode. I will say what ended up helping me narrow it down is I did sample each of the ones that I brought today. So that's kind of what helped me narrow these down.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I'm curious to see if we have any overlap, but I'm actually quite proud of my script today because my Loving Lately ties into my latest read. Listen, there's a lot. It's all happening over here, but I will begin with my Loving Lately, and it is The Man with 1,000 Kids on Netflix. Hannah, have I brought this to the show? Am I having a stroke? Okay. Have you heard this before? Okay.
No.
I don't think so.
No, I'm sitting here like, what?
Have you heard of this program?
No.
Okay. All right. This was recommended to me by one of the friends of the show, our patron, Ava at the Paper Bee Princess. And out of the blue, we message a lot, but she was like, you've got to watch The Man with 1,000 Kids. It's very John Mars. And I said, say less. So I immediately, at my next available opportunity, went to Netflix and learned that this show, it's a 3-episode series, and it's about a group of families who learn that the charismatic man they had trusted is a sperm donor to hundreds or perhaps thousands of other children across the world. So this watched like it's straight out of one of my beloved thrillers, particularly a speculative fiction thriller. This man has fathered hundreds of children around the world because he would go into different sperm banks and offer private donations and sort of do things legally. But it became very apparent that a lot of these places, particularly amongst different countries, they say, you can only donate up to 5 families, but they don't really keep track like that. So unfortunately, he would travel, he would go to all these different banks. And what happened, it literally is almost thousands of people that he has fathered. Obviously, this is a huge problem. It's primarily, I believe it begins in the Netherlands, and then he travels to do this throughout many different countries. And obviously, this is the folks, the children are at high risk of inbreeding among half siblings if they don't know they're related.
I didn't think about
And
that. That
I
makes
know.
sense.
I thought about that. I thought about illness. What if he has like a disease that they don't know about and now he's here passing this on to Lord knows how many? The crazy part is this person it has a social media profile, I think YouTube specifically, and he says that he has fathered about 550 and not 1,000 like the show claims. But he's not ashamed of this 550. He thinks there's absolutely no problem. He thinks he's just been helping people. But the question becomes, what I liked about this documentary is that it's from the perspective of the family. And they interview the families and like think about what would happen if you found out that your kid has 500 siblings, it has 1,000 siblings. Like, what would that do to a person? What does it do psychologically? But I will say, I'm going to try to not give all of the spoilers away because it unfolded in a really organic and interesting way. I was reading this article about him, and he talks about how he dislikes the word serial because it reminds him of being a serial killer, and he thinks there's a negative connotation with that. Anyway, it's a trip. There's only 3 episodes. If this at all sounds interesting, I would say give it a watch. It's not cheesy. I thought it was going to be like kind of cheesy. It's just fascinating because the focus is really on the families and sort of what happens when they find this out. So my loving lately was The Man with 1,000 Kids, a series on Netflix.
Good one. Yeah, that's wild. I'm sorry. I was losing it with
I'm doing my best to ignore. I'm shocked that I was able to.
I'm literally like, Tina is like, can see me actually physically
cracking up.
And she is just like flying through.
Gotta get through.
Really good.
Booked and busy. That's showbiz, babe.
It's showbiz. Yeah, you kept a really good poker face. I did not. Okay. So my loving lately is really simple, but something that I have been utilizing a lot this summer. And that is this covered charcuterie board that I got off of Amazon. And the brand is Farberware. And it comes with compartments, and it also comes with a lid. So it's like a wooden cutting board, but it's made specifically for charcuterie, and it has, I want to say, 6 different compartments, like 2 bigger ones and then 4 smaller ones up top. And what I love the most about it is that it has this lid, because we typically travel to, I mean, it's just down the road, but like family cookouts and things like that we're going to all summer. And I feel like charcuterie boards are like obviously a little bit like overshared on social media, but they really are nice to bring to social gatherings. And we have 2 of these, and I always use them to put various spreads together. I usually do one that's kind of more fun and fancy for the adults. And then I have another one that I put together for kids. And because this is a pretty affordable item, it's nice to have both, because I never know if my kids are going to eat stuff at a cookout.
Right.
And I'm sure plenty of other fellow parents understand that pain. And so it's also just kind of nice to have something that I can bring, even if I'm not bringing a charcuterie board as a potluck meal, that I can put something together that I can put in front of my kids at a potluck. And that has been really helpful this summer. The lid is key. Yeah, that is this Farberware Build-A-Board cutting board / charcuterie board with compartments. And I got that off of Amazon.
I love a charcuterie. It's my favorite. Yes. I could literally eat just meats and cheeses for every meal, basically. I want to know, what do you put that's different on a kid's one?
Well, typically with my kids, I'll do like preferred items of theirs that are quote unquote like more nutritious items. So both of my kids really like bell peppers and baby carrots. So I'll put those on there for like a veggie item. My son likes cheese, so I will put different cheese options for him. And then, I mean, I don't really go by any rules. I've literally put chicken nuggets on there for my daughter before, because she is a little bit more particular. I'll do usually like a sweet item, like a sweet popcorn or something like that on a couple of the bigger plates. But I try to vary it a little bit with maybe like some meats and cheeses, and then a sweet item, and then a vegetable of some sort, whether that's like peppers, carrots, and then like a pickled something or other.
This is genius.
Yeah.
Yes, because we do a lot of book clubs. Lily loves a book club, loves a party, but all she'll ever eat is like whatever sweets there. Like she's not that picky, but like she just gets so distracted. So I feel like that's a really smart hack that you've brought that I might have to steal.
I didn't.
You didn't come up with it on your own.
I didn't. I mean, I found this, charcuterie board or whatever, this mini one on Amazon, but I was watching a YouTuber. I wish I could remember her name. If I remember it, I will put it in the show notes. But she specifically talks about food that she preps for her kids, but also she's big on saving money with food. And one of the things that she mentioned one time when I was watching one of her videos is that because her kids are older, they're like in high school and middle school. And she said, when my kids come home from school, instead of like the first thing they want to do is eat. And so when they come home, I have a board ready for them when they come home and for after school that they can graze off of until I have dinner ready at 6:00. And she would always show like what she put on this plate. And it was always a mix of nutritious foods, but also preferred items that she knew that they would eat, but that once those were finished, that they would keep eating off the plate. And so I got that idea from her, but I've used it not only with after school, but just, going to cookouts or going other places, or even with like if my kids are not in a phase where they're eating at meal times, then I'll
here you go
plates so
that's
they eat. Here you go.
What we're doing. Yeah,
that's what we're doing. You got food. Anyway, I talked about that for way too long, but
it's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I am here for charcuterie talk.
Books and more. Emphasis on the more.
Book talk, etc. You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll keep it moving because speaking of families, my latest read is The Family Experiment by John Marrs.
I've been excited to hear you talk about this one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. John Marrs, we know I'm on a John Marrs kick. I loved his book, The One. Also enjoyed a few of the other ones that I've read. This one was on my summer bonanza. I was very excited. It's sort of in that same world as The One. It's his speculative fiction or speculative thriller. And this one says, some families are virtually perfect. The world's population is soaring, which has created overcrowding cities and an economic crisis. And in the UK, the breaking point has arrived. A growing number of people can no longer afford to start families, let alone raise them. But for those desperate to experience parenthood, there's an alternative. For a monthly subscription fee, clients can create a virtual child from scratch who they can access via the metaverse and a VR headset. And to launch this new initiative, the company behind it has created a reality TV show. So it's a reality TV show. And this book follows 10 couples as they raise a virtual child from birth to age 16, but it condenses it into a 9-month time period. These contestants have to keep their meta child alive and raise it as best they can. It's sort of this 24-hour thing. So whenever they're in the metaverse with their kid, there's an audience and they can vote and sort of provide input on their parenting and the choices they make. And they also get money to do this. They get $250,000 to use as much as they want so they can like buy their kids toys and computers and school, whatever, because they grow up to adulthood in that 9-month span. So it's like much condensed. And then whoever gets the most votes at the end can either choose to keep their meta child and sort of live within that world, or use the remaining money that they have to start and raise a quote real child of their own. And I liked it. I liked the opening. It's a really, really solid opening. There's sort of this drama at the beginning, which you might expect. And then you start to meet some of the couples. There are 10 couples that are vying for this spot. I enjoyed it. I will say it took me a while to get invested because you've got these 10 characters. Of course, they all have secrets and you're trying to figure out, okay, what are their secrets? Who do I like? And they all have their different reasons for wanting to be in the metaverse. I did get invested though. Finally, I would say about 40% in, I finally was like, okay, now I have a good cadence. I switched to audio at some point and that helped me out once I figured out who everybody was. But then you follow along and try and see who's going to win. What happens? What would you do? Because you really do. When you're in this metaverse, you're there. Like that feels like your reality and you're falling in love with this AI child. And at the end of it, the person has to make the decision, do I keep this person that I've been raising or whatever air quotes person I've been raising for 9 months, or eliminate them and use this money to create a child that is flesh and blood. And you'll have to read to see where it goes. Definitely, I could not have predicted this at all. Very propulsive, very much John Mars, and I enjoyed it. I landed it was about a 4-star read for me. The one was so singular and it's my favorite by him. It's one of my favorite thrillers, so sort of a hard comparison to make. Still, I thought this was really, really solid. One of the things that I liked the most about it is that it made me call into question the rights of AI or the rights of bots, sort of like Antibot does. It made me think about what is humanity, right? And I like books that make me think about humanity. Overall, I definitely recommend it. You don't need to read the one. They're not like, it's not like a book in a series, but it does call back to some of the things in that book with no spoilers. So if you want to read it, but you don't have to, that was my latest read. It was The Family Experiment by John Mars.
Well, great one and great pairing with my latest read, which you actually just mentioned, and that is Antibot by Sierra Greer.
We didn't plan it, but I'm happy that it's a good pair. I love when that happens.
Yeah, very serendipitous of us. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like Tina mentioned, we didn't plan this, but I'm excited to talk about this kind of in conversation with your latest read. So Antibot is one that I feel like was pretty buzzy at the beginning of the year. And I had heard pretty polarizing things about it. And so I didn't really know how I was going to feel going into it. But I am excited to talk about it. Antibot is about a robot designed to be the perfect girlfriend for her human owner, Doug. She is programmed to fulfill his every desire. She strives for perfection, but finds it increasingly difficult as she develops human-like qualities, and disappointing Doug is her worst fear. That's how she's been programmed. So she strives relentlessly for his approval. But as Annie explores curiosity and secrecy and longing, and the lines between creator and creation start to blur. Their complex relationship raises questions about ownership and autonomy and the true nature of love in a world where artificial intelligence is indistinguishable from humanity. So I recently mentioned in a post on my Instagram that I had recently buddy read this book with a friend, and that one of us gave it 1 star and one of us gave it almost 5 stars. And I am here to finally break the news that I am the one who gave it a nearly 5-star rating.
Okay, good,
yeah,
good.
I really loved this one. I thought that it was really smart. It might end up climbing its way to 5 stars at some point, but I like to give my ratings some time. What I thought was really unique about this one is that although many AI books talk about the dangers of technology and artificial intelligence and how it's dangerous and the enemy, I loved that this book really highlights how humans are the scariest of all of us. And this was a really intense allegory for emotionally abusive relationships, as well as a really painful but important exploration of misogyny. There is kind of an early focus in this one on sexual content between Annie and Doug, and that might deter some readers, but I want to mention that it does later shift to a more serious exploration of power dynamics and control, female agency, etc. The characterization is pretty straightforward, with Annie emerging as this sentient, sympathetic figure juxtaposed against Doug, who is a really emotionally abusive and horribly toxic man. I have heard some negative comments about this book being due to Doug being the worst. And yes, he is the worst. And I thought that was the point. And I think that if you're a reader that needs all of your characters to be likable, you certainly won't find that here. Our sentient robot, Annie, is the best character in the whole book. I don't need my characters to be particularly likable. I don't even need to have one likable character in my book. I love problematic characters being used for deeper purpose. And so that really only solidified my enjoyment because it was so well done and so intentional. But I know that that won't be for everyone. So I thought that I would mention it here. And then B, if you're looking for science fiction, there is definitely no finer explanation of the robot machinery other than some info dumping here and there that is very high level. Annie plugs into a charging port and can have her back unzipped and have things turned off and on, but that's the extent of it. So if you are looking for something heavy on the science, you won't find that here either. I do not want that. I definitely don't prefer that. And I think that I would have been deterred by more in the weeds talk about the actual science of it, because I don't think that that was really what the author was trying to do with this book. I think that what you will find here is a thought-provoking and unflinching and even anger-inducing portrayal of misogyny and the complexities of female agency, alongside really powerful explorations of human cruelty and how women can get stuck in abusive relationships with people that they love, and ultimately finding the strength to find ourselves despite it all. And I loved it. And that's Annie Bot by Sierra Greer.
Did you talk yourself into a 5-star rating?
Yeah, I think I did.
It was like real time, like, okay. And gosh, and that's part of what's so fun about writing reviews, right? Is like you can really sway yourself one way or another. I also like what you said about like giving a review some time to marinate almost, because I do the same. I'm like, if I review it too quickly, I'm like, if I look back later on, I might think, oh, and it could be one way or the other. It's not always that I make it better. Sometimes it's like, wait, it wasn't as good as I thought it was. But good job on that. That was fun to hear you talk about a book that I've already read, because I was like, I wonder how you'll describe this. But yeah.
Yeah. And you read it, I think, before I joined the podcast. I do remember you talking about it, and I remember you loving it. Mm-hmm. So
I thought it was really innovative and just like you said, all of those things I would co-sign, and it goes very well with the family experiment. All right, for book talk today, we had a fun idea. We've not done this, you and I, before. We've done it previously on the show. We are doing an Ask Us Anything episode. Thank you to everyone who wrote in, whether you DM'd us or what have you. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get to everything. And I think we're going to do this in a little bit more of like a rapid fire way. But there were some very interesting questions. We'll do our best. Really, that's all you can ask. Hopefully. if you're expecting perfection, you're not going to find it here, but that's okay. So we will do our best. We'll just kind of go in order based on what's listed here. The first question we had was, do you have any family saga recommendations for us or for me? And yes, this is a genre
I was going to say, boy, do we
both enjoy.
Yeah.
My first one that I wrote down was Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. That one I just thought was very different than I was expecting, but boy, was I invested.
Yeah, that's a really good one. The first two that came to mind when this question popped up was Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I thought was a really beautiful story and very heavily focused on family and family secrets and drama and all that great stuff that we look for in a family saga. And then I know one that Tina and I both really loved was Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano.
Yes. Love that one. I didn't bring it here because I'm like, how many times can I mention that book on the show? But I'm glad that you loved it as well. It helps me kind of frame and understand the books that you like to read.
Yeah. And gives other people an idea too of books that we both enjoy and like. So I felt like it was worth mentioning.
Worth mentioning again. Yes. And another one that came to mind, this is one that I first read it this year, which is crazy to me. It's Homegoing by Ya Jesse. Talk about this one spans many, many generations and was just absolutely fascinating and heartbreaking and just interesting.
Yeah. I read that one for the first time, I want to say in 2021. And I remember at the time I was like, what took me so long to read this?
Yes. One of those what took me so long to read this books. Yeah. And we actually have that question coming in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last one I grabbed was Ask Again Yes by Mary Beth Keane. I really liked that one. I read that back when it came out. And it's just a very interesting story. I have since read a lot more family sagas. So now I'm wondering, like, not would it hold up, but would I think of it differently if I approached it now? But I remember really enjoying that because there's this secrets that sort of last for a really long time and you figure out by the end what happened.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet, but I do really want to. I thought about one more that I want to plug before we move on to the next question, which is The Most Fun We Ever Had by Claire Lombardo. And that one I enjoyed I think a lot of people really enjoyed this one. I think it was just a fabulous book, but I am one of 4 sisters. And so,
Oh.
and I'm the youngest. And so I really enjoyed that storyline specifically, but in general, just all of the sisters felt reminiscent to family members of mine and made the story, I feel like, maybe more impactful. So I really loved that one.
That is fascinating. As an only child, I did not enjoy that one.
Yeah.
And I remember having very specific reasons and feeling
Oh,
strongly in that at the
interesting.
time. But I'm an
Yeah.
only. So I think I look for, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I just like kind of, I think I
Huh.
want different things in my family sagas. So,
Yeah. And that it probably is, we probably approach, like, even though this is a genre or a subgenre that we both really enjoy, we probably enjoy them for different reasons and probably have a totally different approach going into them as someone who's an only child and then someone who's from a big family.
I know you're
So,
probably like, that is so accurate. Where I'm like, why are you being mean to each other?
right.
Like, um, so the next sort of couple questions, you had questions about balancing, and really the main idea was how do we balance our, I think, personal reading from podcast reading. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, there is no difference.
Same.
Pretty much everything I read, not quite as I read it. I like to be 1 or 2 episodes ahead of time. But one thing I do make sure to do is always bring my reviews to the podcast first. So you're not going to hear me
Mm-hmm.
really talk much about it before I talk about it on the podcast. So that's my only real rule for myself. I also kind of love that though about our podcast because I feel like you get to know us as readers and therefore people. And that's what I've always really enjoyed about doing this show is like, we don't have rules. You can read 15 romances in a row if you want to. Now, the listeners, some of them might finally say what's going on over there, but it really
Sure.
is just our normal reading cadence and our natural pace and what we would naturally read if we didn't have it.
Yeah. And sometimes we have more specific topics or things that we cover, which are fun. And I feel like are great opportunities for us to
Yes.
stretch ourselves.
Uh-huh.
But in general, I also feel like because we're bringing latest reads to each of our episodes that are maybe even about a more niche or granular topic, that's our opportunity to read something more for us rather
Mhm.
than something that's for a specific topic or genre.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I didn't even I mean, I knew that as a part of the creation of it, but yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly why we do that because we're mood readers. We have to have a little flexibility, otherwise it's not gonna work, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Because I've had that thought before where I've had a book that I wanted to read and I'm like, well, when am I going to fit this
Mhm.
in? Because we have X, Y, and Z episode coming up. And then I've thought, oh, but I have to have a latest read for each of those episodes. So I'll just fit it in there.
One of the questions we got asked, I was struggling to answer, and I still don't know if I have a good answer, but I'm curious to see what you think. The question is, what has each of us read for the podcast that was the most out of our comfort zone? And I was trying to really dig in and think about it. And this tells me because it was such a stretch for me to think of one, either one, I read pretty widely as is, and I'm open to that, or 2, I really need to push myself and read some more that's maybe not quite so in my wheelhouse. So I
Yeah.
really had a hard time answering that one. Do you have an idea?
I had a hard time with this one too. And I want to say that although I read a lot of post apocalyptic and climate fiction, that
Mhm.
episode, for whatever
Yes.
reason, I had to sample so many books that ended up
Yep.
not being for me that it felt out of my comfort zone.
Yes.
And I think it's because a lot of the books that I read within that wheelhouse are books that kind of fall into my lap or books
Mhm.
that like I know like I have purposefully sought them out for that reason or I'd previously heard of them and I'd kind of already read all of the ones that I already knew about and was wanted to read and so I was having to really deep dive into some newer subgenres within that subgenre to find some books. And not all of them were ones that I would have normally picked up if we hadn't done that episode, I guess.
Yeah, and it's so funny too because I thought surely this would be one that we would not easily
Mm-hmm.
do, but like, it
Right.
would be in our wheelhouse. But yeah, sometimes when you're reading so specifically, it can be a challenge. One episode that challenged me was trying to find a 5+ star book where Renee and I did this, where we sort of try to manifest or manufacture a 5+ star reading experience. And it was dang near impossible for me because I would just, sometimes it's just magic in a bottle and you're not expecting it. So that one I know really challenged me, but it wasn't because of the genre. It was just the topic that really, threw me for a loop.
Us.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I could see that too being stressful, not necessarily in a negative way, but the stakes are high. The stakes are high.
Because what if I don't have one? I was fully prepared to come to the show, and I think I did have one 5+ star. I have to remember and look back, but in the end we got there. But sort of, I was like, wait a minute, what if I don't think of one? So that's one that came to my brain. I also really liked that someone asked us about Bookstagram and how it is different now than from when we both started. I started in, I think, 2016. What about you?
2015. So I would consider both of us pretty, not like OG, but I mean, kind of OG.
OGs, yes.
Yeah. I mean, we've been here for a long time.
Almost 10 years, right? You said 2014. What year did you say?
It was either 2014 or 2015. Because it was right when I graduated college.
Same.
Yeah. I was going to say, am I like...
For my doctorate, yes. For my doctorate.
Okay, that's when I graduated undergrad.
Yeah.
But anyway, and yeah, I started that as I was kind of starting a new chapter, and I was feeling lonely. And I just wanted a sense of community, and so I started it. And I feel like on a very surface level, a difference between then and now is I do feel like then it really was people who genuinely wanted to just connect with other readers and talk about books. And there are still people like that today. And I love Bookstagram. I'm still here and I'm still connecting with people. But I do feel like, I think since the rise of TikTok, really, it's become a very big marketing tactic specifically for publishers and other authors and book businesses, et cetera, to promote their product. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that that's fine. And also speaks to the success that Bookstagram and TikTok have seen in its ability to sway people to pick things up and to read them. But I think that, too, something that I saw a lot when I first started, I remember the first person that I followed on Bookstagram was Folded Pages Distillery. And she's not active anymore. But she had very curated photos, and they were just so beautiful. And I remember when I first started, I just aspired to be her. And again, she's not active anymore. But if you really like those beautiful, really heavily curated posts that are just like book reviews in art form, the book script is a great follow. She does very similar content, and I really admire her for continuing to do that. It's so beautiful, and it reminds me of kind of the OG Bookstagram.
Yeah. No, I love that, and I could sit here and like talk about. It's kind of cringy, probably like, the good, back in the day, not even the good old days. It was just different. I started on Bookstagram, specifically the Paper Fury. I really liked her stuff. And it's so funny because I never read fantasy, and I still don't, but I just remember thinking she made a great point where she said, people are like, well, why do you want to do this? And why do you want to build a following? And she spoke about how she had aspirations to be an author, and she wanted to build her audience first and then sort of Trojan horse them. And like, now here's my book, right? And I thought, one, that's genius. And also she's now an author, which I think is pretty cool. And now that I'm saying this, it actually never occurred to me until just now. I started this because I loved reading and other people were doing it. And I thought how fascinating. I loved writing and I wanted to continue that. That's sort of what I did with the podcast. Thankfully, I'm so grateful that people found me on Instagram, followed me there, and then translated here to you listeners. So I did it.
You did. Yeah, no, and I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, well, and then now you're here too.
I'm so glad I'm here.
Me too. Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think there's differences. I think it evolves like any platform. I still love reviews. I'm a big fan of reviews, so keep writing them. Hopefully you all like seeing my reviews. And, I do love promotion of like New Release Tuesday and things, but at the end of the day, I'm there for book recs.
Yeah, I agree. And that is one thing that I will say I actually like about Bookstagram right now is that I really like the emphasis on kind of mass book recommendations. It's something that I'm seeing a lot right now are posts, like our carousel posts that have each one is a recommendation based on a different trope or
I've seen that.
I love that.
Really cool. Yeah.
People are getting really creative, and I think that just comes with social media being around longer. And so people have had more time to be creative and figure out fun things to do. And although I have a love-hate relationship with Reels, ultimately I like them because I do feel like it offers a quicker way to be able to engage and connect with people. And you don't have to think about writing a 5-paragraph caption.
Right. Yeah.
It's a 6-second video with a question.
And then they sort of also see, I don't really do those short ones because I don't know how. I mean, I know how, but my brain doesn't create that way yet. Maybe I'll continue
but
to
your
evolve.
New Release Tuesday videos,
Those are long as hell.
But I look forward to those every Tuesday. And I know so many people do. And I love that. I love that each person kind of has their own style of creating content that people come to know and enjoy. And yeah.
Do you remember when we said this would be rapid fire? I feel like we've overstayed our welcome here in the book talk category, but
that's okay. We can do maybe 2 more questions. We don't have to go over all of them. Maybe 2 more questions.
Okay. Yeah, and we can definitely keep these for a future episode. The one question I would love to answer is your most pressing book that you feel like you should have read.
Oh, gosh.
So I'll tell you mine first. And it is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Never read it.
I have neither.
Absolutely no reason. And I just know it's so important and just, impactful to so many. I got it at a little free library once too. So I really have no excuse. But yeah, that's the one that I'm kind of like, ooh, don't throw tomatoes at me.
Yeah. I haven't read. Okay. So, my answer before would have been My Year of Rest and Relaxation and then The Song of Achilles, which are super popular TikTok books that I just read in the last year. And I purposefully read them for this purpose. They were like books that I was like, I can't be a booksta girly without having read these books. But I did finally knock those off. And then I tried so hard, you all, to read Normal People twice.
Oh.
And I couldn't get into it. So I still have never finished that book. And I have never read a single other Sally Rooney.
I was going to ask you if you've read anything else. Okay.
I haven't.
Interesting.
And she's so in my wheelhouse in terms of just like genre and the types of books, messy love stories and relationships. And I could not get through it. But I loved Talking at Night by Claire Daverly, which I've heard is like a very apt comp. So who's to say?
Who's to say? All right. Give us one more question. Which one do you want to end with?
Okay. So let me see. I like this question. So how and where did you learn literary review skills / language techniques? And I think that this is also a good opportunity to talk about just how we review books or maybe even how that's changed over the years.
Okay. One, I'm flattered that you think I have literary review skills and techniques because it truly is a lot of consuming content and modeling what others did. I did not study English, even though it was my best subject, growing up in high school. I tested out of it, or I took it in high school, but then for college, I tested out of it. So I never took a college level English course. And so I don't know what the technical terms are. And sometimes I think about it. I'm like, gosh, if people study this, they're probably listening to me like, really? You're explaining this in an interesting way. But then at the same time, I like that. I've always preferred a more conversational format in terms of talking about books. I don't think you have to study that to be good at it. I practice. That's it.
Yep.
Writing reviews is absolutely an art, as is podcasting. And I got better at both the more that I did that. But I'm always learning and always sort of open to refining things.
Yeah. And I have honestly a really similar answer. I think that you have to fumble through a lot of it before you find your voice, your style, the way, like, do you like more of a conversational style review format, or do you want a more polished, thoughtful look at like maybe writing a review. And I think with practice in any of those formats, depending on your preference, you'll get better. But I also will say that a lot of editing is involved with
for
both the podcast and on TikTok videos and reels and things like that. I mean, those get pared down quite a bit, and there are lots of pauses, and we're just talking, and so there's natural lulls and things. But yeah, it does get better and easier with practice.
Yeah. So just doing it and being around for a while, around for, however many years it's been at this point. All right. Well, let's get into the books. Let's see if we have any overlap.
Yeah.
I'm going to start first because you know what?
We're 50 minutes in and we got to wrap this baby up.
Wrap it up. Land the plane. Okay. I'm excited to tell you about my first one. It's called And So I Roar by Abi Dare. And it comes out on August 6th from Dutton. This is the follow-up to the book, The Girl with the Louding Voice. And it's about Tia, who accidentally overhears a whispered conversation between her mother, who is terminally ill and lying in a hospital bed in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and her aunt. And the repercussions will send her on a desperate quest to uncover a secret her mother has been hiding for nearly 2 decades. Back home in Lagos, you've got Aduni, who is a plucky 14-year-old runaway lying awake in Tia's guest room. She has escaped her rural village and is desperate to seek a better future. And she's finally found refuge with Tia, who's helped her get into school. Aduni's been wanting education her whole life, and she's super excited. And then a terrible ordeal happens that forces Tia to make a terrible choice between protecting Aduni or finally learning the truth behind the secret her mother has hidden from her. Anyway, all of this to say, it is a story that I think is going to be very emotional. It's going to be a follow-up to The Girl with the Louding Voice, which I loved, came out in 2020. And I'm very curious to see. This is one of the books that has it uses language that I thought was really, really well served on audio, because you got to hear sort of the pronunciation and the way that the author intended it to be read or heard. So we will see. And this was And So I Roar by Abi Dare.
Is this a direct sequel?
Yeah, it sounds like it. I would have to look and see, because I know Aduni is from the previous book.
From the previous book.
It says she's 14 now. So I'm like, how many years? But I don't think very many. Because I mean, she was...
When you mentioned Tia having to decide between protecting her, there's no other choice. We got to protect.
We've got to. Yes. I was like, what do you mean? Is there? Got it.
No, we have to. No, we have to protect her at all
costs. She's a special character.
Yes, great character. So I would definitely recommend the first book, The Girl with the Louding Voice.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great one. Okay, so my first pick is There's Nothing Wrong with Her by Kate Weinberg. And this is coming out from Putnam on August 6th. And this one sounds a little bit weird, but from the sample that I read, I liked the narrative voice, and it sounds like the perfect amount of weird for my personal tastes with contemporary fiction. This is a book about Vita, who lives this seemingly perfect life with a good job in London and a successful doctor boyfriend, Max, and a promising future. However, she ends up descending into this mysterious illness that doctors are unable to diagnose, but it confines her to her bed. She can't get out of bed. She spends a lot of time sleeping. As her physical and mental health deteriorate, she grapples with and this is where it gets a little strange, a possible ghostly visitor named Luigi, who has started showing up at her bedside, bringing her snacks and romantic advice and just chatting with her. And amidst the darkness, a budding friendship with her upstairs neighbors also offers a glimmer of hope, but her condition defies medical explanation, and she's forced to confront this possibility that the root of her suffering lies within herself. This is a darkly humorous and poignant exploration of illness, isolation, and the blurred lines between reality and delusion. And based on the synopsis and the little bit that I've read, this one kind of sounds like it might be a mix between My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Remarkably Bright Creatures, which is a very strange mashup, but that's just what it's giving for me. But that is There's Nothing Wrong with Her by Kate Weinberg, and that is coming out on August 6th.
That sounds interesting. Those comps, I would not have thought to put them together, but in a way, I got it. I'm with you.
Yeah. The constant sleeping and the weird friends.
Next for me is so interesting. It's After Oz by Gordon McAlpine. This one comes out on August 6th by Crooked Lane Books. And this is a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, where one little girl is forced to face head on the prejudices of the Midwest in the late 19th century. So it's in Kansas and it's in 1896. Of course, we know a tornado destroys the Gale family farm and 11-year-old Dorothy goes missing. As the days pass, the Gales are increasingly terrified that the worst has happened. But then the girl turns up unharmed 4 days later and the townfolk are super relieved. That is until Dorothy herself relates her account of the events that took place during her appearance. Okay, this sounds like a direct, we know this story, right? But when Dorothy gets back, she's describing a fantastical land and its magical inhabitants, a scarecrow, a cowardly lion, a wizard, a witch, and they think she is delusional, pagan, and diabolical, especially when the body of a local spinster is found, matching Dorothy's description of a witch she claims to have killed. So they find this incriminating evidence tying Dorothy to the real murder, and they may sentence her to the Topeka Insane Asylum. Pardon? This sounds fan-friggin-tastic. There's a psychologist, there's small town, insidious secrets, and I cannot wait for this one. It's also, I'm trying to get the audio. I think it's like 270 pages. So I feel like I could get through this rather quickly. I'm obsessed with The Wizard of Oz, and it sounds like a pretty unique take on, okay, this happened, now what? Like, what would happen next? So super excited. It's called After Oz by Gordon McAlpine.
Okay, that does sound really good. I didn't know that A, you loved The Wizard of Oz, and B, this just sounds really, really good and an important deep dive into this story.
I know. I'm curious. For sure.
Perfect. Okay, so my next one is Highway 13, a short story collection by Fiona McFarlane. It comes out on August 13 from FSG. This one sounds like one that you might like too, Tina. It is a story collection that's a haunting exploration of the ripples caused by a single act of horrific violence. So these are interconnected short stories. The author delves deep into the aftermath of a series of brutal murders, examining the ways which these tragedies reshape lives and communities. We get stories from the shattered families to the morbidly curious public, and the book scrutinizes the complex interplay between grief and fascination and the relentless march of time. These stories weave together multiple perspectives, tracing the crime's impact across continents and generations by focusing on the lives of the affected rather than the killer. This is a theme that we're seeing a lot in literature lately, and I really like it. I think that she is going to offer a really fresh and poignant perspective on true crime narratives. The collection delves into questions of memory, identity, and the power of storytelling, ultimately revealing the enduring shadows cast by a crime that refuses to be forgotten. And that is Highway 13 by Fiona McFarlane.
All right. That does sound good. I like those themes. Like is a funny word, but you know what I mean.
Yep. I enjoy exploring them as well.
Enjoy exploring them. I like that. Good reframe.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias. This one comes out on August 6th from Mulholland Books, and he is the author of The Devil Takes You Home. Did you read that one?
No. We almost had an overlap. I almost brought this one.
Oh,
yes, I
almost
brought this one,
Close.
But I didn't. But it literally was, it was on my list. I had it even as a backup in case we did have overlap. But I'm excited to hear you talk about it.
I like this because it is a vengeance story. I love sort of a revenge plot. And this is about childhood friends Gabe, Xavier, Tavo, Paul, and Bimbo. And death has always been close. Hurricanes, car accidents, gang violence, and their family motto was, "We are surrounded by ghosts." But this time is different. Bimbo's mom has been shot dead. "We're going to kill the guys who killed her," Bimbo swears, and they all agree. And he is feral with grief. He becomes unrecognizable, taking no prisoners in his search for names. Soon they learn Maria was gunned down by guys working for the drug kingpin of Puerto Rico. no one has ever gone up against him and survived. So the boys are making strategy, and then a hurricane comes in because, of course, it does. They are known to carry evil spirits, and boundaries between myth, mysticism, and grim realities of our world overlap. It's a coming of age story, and it's going to be violent. I know it. His other one was. So I'm, obviously all of the trigger warnings with this one. So heads up on that, but I think it sounds interesting. It is House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That was one thing that I heard about his first book, is that it was very graphic, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I can think of a lot of other thriller and horror authors that write very similarly, but definitely worth noting for sure.
Yeah, it was graphic even for me. And he uses a lot of Spanish, which I really enjoy, but that is something too, like you might have to stretch yourself if you don't speak Spanish, but I thought it like brought authenticity.
Yeah, no, that's a good note. Okay, so my next book is for our cozy readers who want something a little bit lighter. This is The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mai Mochizuki. This comes out on August 20th from Ballantine Books, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. And yeah, for the readers that ask us for more cozy and warm book recommendations, I think that this one will be for you. I know I'm really looking forward to reading this one in full with a cup of warm tea, cozied under some blankets. This is a translated novel that is inspired by the Japanese belief in feline gratitude, that if you are kind to cats, they will repay you. And the book introduces a mysterious coffee shop frequented by lost and wandering souls. It is run by, hear me out, talking cats. But I think it'll work. And the shop offers more than just caffeine and pastries. It provides cosmic guidance and advice for these patrons. This book is told in interconnected stories. I'm thinking that this is going to be really similar to Before the Coffee Gets Cold, where you're getting several different interconnected stories that take place in the same world. And we're going to be delving into the lives of 4 adrift individuals. The story explores themes of fate, second chances, and the transformative power of companionship. As these characters navigate life's crossroads, they discover that kindness to animals can lead to unexpected rewards, proving it's never too late to find your own path to happiness and fulfillment. And that is The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mai Mochizuki.
I'm really glad you brought that. And like you said, it's a smart idea. Knowing we don't read, cozy or uplifting books that often, I like that you brought that, as an option for folks.
Yeah, just in case. I like a cozy book too every once in a while. It's not necessarily what I naturally draw to, but this one sounds like it might be cute and fun.
Last for me is Glass Houses by Madeline Ashby. This one sounds so interesting. It's sort of a locked room mystery, if you will. And it's about a group of employees and their CEO who crash onto a not quite deserted tropical island. All right, stay with me. They crash. There's some sort of work event. They crash on this desert island, but luckily they found a beautiful, fully stocked private palace with all of the latest technological updates. Though, guess what? They can't connect to the outside world. But the house has more secrets than anyone might have guessed, and a much darker reason for having been built and left behind. You've got these co-workers that are trying to do different things in the group. They're trying to keep people stable. They're trying to stay sane themselves. They're trying to live. And it focuses on Kristen, who is their chief emotional manager. Again, just go with it. She's a woman in tech, and it has always meant having to be smarter than anyone expects. But usually this is not a problem, and her talent has gotten her to the top of her field. But will a killer instinct be enough to survive the island? And the reason that it really sort of made me put it on my list, the house is AI. There's some sort of technology associated with it, which I think is really interesting. And they also comped it. It said it was perfect for fans of Severance, The White Lotus, and Black Mirror. I mean,
I love all of those.
I know, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to turn these comps down. So we'll have to see. The book is called Glass Houses. It comes out on August 13th by Tor, and it's by Madeline Ashby.
Yeah, that is one that I'm really excited about as well. I'm glad that you brought that one.
Excellent.
Okay, so my last one is Come Out by Natalie Parker. This comes out on August 27th from Putnam. This is an LGBTQ plus YA horror about queer teens who accidentally invoke a twisted spirit.
Uh-oh.
And I don't always love really darkly spiritual books if they're really spiritually heavy, but I think that in a young adult ghosty setting, this could be light enough to be to my taste. This is about Fern, Jack, and Mallory, who are bound by shared secrets and identities and find solace in an abandoned woodshed. Why would you find solace in an abandoned woodshed? Who's to say? But kids will be kids, I guess. So when Mallory vanishes one night, the survivors are left with minimal memories and a chasm between their true selves and the world that they know. Jump to 5 years later, and the ghost of Mallory returns seeking retribution. No, thank you. And forcing Fern and Jack to confront the truth. This, I think, will be a really haunting and atmospheric story that explores the complexities of queer identity, the power of friendship, and the devastating consequences of hiding your true self. And that is Come Out by Natalie Parker.
Excellent. That's another, I'm glad you branched out of your comfort zone, if you will.
Yeah.
A little bit. More so than I did. I'm like straight mystery and thriller for this episode. You know what?
That's
okay.
Good.
That's okay, right?
That's okay.
And I'll just continue on with this trend because my current read is No Road Home by John Frame. And this book is very good. It is genre defying. It's sort of gothic, it's horror, it's mystery. And at its core, you're really following this father and his queer son as he tries to protect him among this very, very messed up family. I'm almost done, so I'm going to be talking about it on the show soon. But I really liked his debut, The Brightlands, and I've been waiting for this one for a while.
Mm-hmm. I loved The Brightlands too.
Good. What are you reading?
I am reading The Boys on the Boat by Daniel James Brown. And I guess you could actually kind of say that this book is one that is kind of an answer to the previous question of what's a book that you feel like you should have read that you haven't yet. And this is definitely one that I've been meaning to read for a really long time. My brother and I have started reading together books every month or so. And the first book that we read didn't work. That'll be on one of our DNF episodes that we do for patrons the next time that we do it. But this one so far is going really well for both of us. And for those who haven't read it already or aren't familiar, this is a underdog story set against the backdrop of the 1936 Berlin Olympics. The author chronicles the journey of 9 working-class American rowers who defy expectations to challenge the might of the Nazi regime at the time. Through the lens of Joe Rance, who is an orphaned and impoverished young man, the book explores themes of resilience, camaraderie, and the American dream. The narrative captures the raw energy and determination of these athletes as they overcome adversity to achieve the impossible. And it's going to be a tearjerker. My brother texted me this morning and was like, this is going to be a tearjerker for sure.
Oh, no.
And I agree. It definitely feels like it's going to be a tearjerker. So, but I'm excited to continue listening. I'm doing this one on audio. And that's The Boys on the Boat by Daniel James Brown.
That is perfect for this time of year with the Olympics coming up Friday.
Yeah, coming right up.
Kick off, opening day, whatever it's called. I'm going to be there.
You're going to be watching.
You're
a big
ceremonies.
Olympics watcher.
With bated breath, babe. That'll be my loving lately for the next several weeks. So
love it.
You know what, though? Thank you so much. That's it for today. Thanks for spending a part of your day with us. Links to all the books mentioned can be found in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, you can help us by following wherever you listen and by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps get our show out to new listeners and grows our audience. And don't forget, if you would like access to exclusive bonus content and community, you can join us for $5 a month on patreon.com/booktalketc.
If you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at booktalketc@gmail.com. You can also connect with us both at booktalketc on Instagram and Tina at TBR etc. and Hannah at Handpicked Books. Talk to you next week. And in the meantime, remember,
everything's better with books.
Good night.
Aww. Can you say
everything's better with books?
Good job, honey buns. That was good.
So good.
I'm so proud of you.